Just I am opening the PPT. Just wait. If you have any doubt about the previous class topic, you can discuss during this time. So, okay, we'll start the class. I hope PPT is visible now. Please tell me, is it visible or not?
Sir, it's visible, sir.
Okay. So, some of the concept used in fatigue that is also required for another 2 to 3 chapters. Those concepts also will explain. So before that, before going in detail, so I'll show some photos, then I'll come back and I'll explain. So before that, I'll show some photos, you'll get some information. So this is the, repeatedly I'm showing this photo because complete material science, your material science starts. So when the solidification starts during your casting process. So how your material is melted, how mold is prepared, what type of furnace you are using, all those things you are not, it is not comes under purview of your material science syllabus. Those things will be covered in your metal casting. When you come to your material science, when solidification starts, after solidification starts, what are the events happen or what are the process happen, what are the phases changes, how crystal is formed, all those things we are discussing. This is so imagine it is a molten metal, it just started solidification. This is one nucleus. This is one nucleus. Nucleus is nothing but a one unit cell. This is one more unit cell is formed, and some more unit cell will start forming. So then the finally n number of unit cells will start joining with respect to this nucleus or this nucleus or this nucleus, and finally it forms the grain. You can see here. This is the one nucleus. Around this one grain is formed. This is one more from another nucleus. There is a one more grain is formed. Like that, n number of grains are formed here. So n number of grains are formed. Finally, we can, if once you see through the microscope, so we will get this structure. The first 3 diagrams are the schematic sketches to explain the concept. Third one is almost look like a actual photograph or microscopic photograph. Now there are fatigue. So whenever material is subject to fatigue, that is repeated loading. The simple example you can understand in beam, you have to understand some more amount of understanding is required for the beam. But when you come to the simple steel rod, so imagine you are pulling the steel rod and pushing it 100. Imagine per minute you are pushing and pulling 100 times. So 100 times the stress reversal takes place. For one moment it is compressive stress, let it be to 100 megapascal. In another moment, it will be tensile stress. If you pull and push the same steel rod 100 times the stress reversal takes place. The ranging from it like imagine it like follows the sinusoidal path from plus 100 megapascal to plus 100 megapascal. That is what we can see from the outside. But what is happening inside the material, that is required being a material science engineer or being a mechanical engineer. So now, so when steel rod is pushed, this grain will try to compress. Imagine already you have the grain. This grain will try to compress. The atomic distance between the adjacent grains will changes. Then attraction forces changes, repulsion forces changes. Whenever atomic distance between the two adjacent atoms changes, the repulsion force and there is a physics is studied. The atomic forces versus the distance between the atoms, center distance. So some up to certain level there is attraction force. After atomic distance, atomic nucleus distance changes or atomic center distance changes, then repulsion forces will start. So when it is subject to compression, in empty lab we can feel the externally, physically we can view how compression takes place or how extension takes place. But as per your material science is considered, especially fatigue is considered, what is happening in the grain level. You are talking about the grain level, not in the microstructure level. You are not talking about the unit cell level. You are talking about the grain level. So in the grain level, a lot of changes happen. So once it is compressed, atomic distance decreases, and because of that, there may be more attraction forces between the atoms. When there is a extension, or if you pull the steel rod, so the distance between the atom may increases. After it causes some threshold value, so then repulsion target takes place, or it will break the atomic bonds. The breaking the atomic bonds are nothing but small voids will be, if the n number of atoms are bonds break, the small micro voids will be formed. This micro void will be propagate further, or small nucleus will be formed, or small void is formed, that is referred to the nucleus, or the micro crack. Micro crack is originated or nucleated during the fatigue loading. But when you come to fracture, you are assuming that material already has some crack. So once it is subject to loading, crack will propagate. That you have to understand between what is fracture and what is fatigue. Fatigue crack and crack in the fracture. Crack in the fracture, already it is there in the material. It may be happened during your processing, during original casting process or forging process or some other machining process. But when you come to fatigue, you are assuming that there is no defect. Only when it is subject to continuous expansion, compression. So because of that expansion, the bonding will break, atomic bonding will break. So it's like that small voids or cavities will form. Here we can see small cavities, especially in around the grain boundary. That is the major difference between the fatigue crack and crack in fracture. Fatigue crack is nucleated during fatigue loading. Simple way you can say that fatigue crack is nucleated during fatigue loading. So same thing I shown. This is I have put so many photos to understand better. So this is a schematic sketch. In the examination you have to write like this. This is a grain boundary. That at the grain boundary, the atomic distance is not uniform, because that it is a weak grain boundary is always weaker region. When it is subject to continuous expansion and compression, each and every grain will be subjected to expansion and contraction. Even though you are pulling the complete steel rod, so each and every grain will be subject to continuous expansion and contraction. Because of that, small voids may be formed along the grain boundary or across the grain. That will be referred as the new fatigue crack or nucleation of the fatigue crack. This is the actual photograph. Figure B is the actual photograph. So we can see. So there are two phases also we can observe. One is dark phase. You can see dark grain. There is a group of dark grains. There are some light grains. The light grains will comes under one phase. The dark grains are comes under another phase. So now what happens is, when it is subject to continuous pulling and pushing or continuous fatigue loading, some atoms from the grain boundary may jump into the adjacent grain boundary. That's one more photos I put so that you can understand. So imagine there is one atom here. This is grain 1, grain 2, grain 3, leftmost grain. There is one atom. There is a more pulling strength, attraction force from right side grain. So whenever there is a more attraction force, then suddenly one atom will jump into the neighboring or adjacent grain. That's one more schematic. This photograph I put to understand better. There is, imagine this is a grain boundary. Around the grain boundary, one atom will try to jump into the adjacent grain that is shown by red letter. So now this is a single crystal. So everything is grain boundary. This is a physical crystal. The size of the crystal may be bigger. Bigger, we can see this is grain boundary. This is complete outside surface is referred as a grain boundary. It is a complete crystal is only one grain. Suppose if this crystal size is, let it be around 1 centimeter. In 1 centimeter height, width and length, there is only one grain. But grain size is bigger. Normally, we are talking in terms of grains, the number of grains per inch. The grains per inch, GPI, you are not referring. But when you come to the same size metal, the number of grain may be in the same shape. Number of grain may be few thousand. So if you keep the metal in the shape, that is not even, we can cut the metal, we can grind it in this shape, but still it is not a single grain. It is always polygrain. But this is a diamond crystal. It is a single grain. So now the crystal or grains are the building blocks for metals. So hence metals are referred as polycrystalline material. Repeatedly I am telling, the crystals, metals are referred as a polycrystalline material, like a building. Building has bricks and the concrete also. The bricks is the building blocks of the, that's why we are using the building blocks. The bricks are the building blocks for the building. In the similar way, for the metals, it comes under polycrystalline material, and crystals or grain are the building blocks of metal. So there may be atom, unit cell. From atom, it joined together, it forms unit cell. The unit cell, it forms grain. So finally, it forms grain. The one more name for the grain is the crystal. That you have to remember. Crystals and grains we can use interchangeably, no difference. So this is the turbine blade. Sometimes turbine blades can be produced with single crystal, but production technology is not so easy to produce complete turbine blade with single crystal. The most of the time in conventional method, it is a polycrystalline material, but there are still some small, the turbine blade can be produced by single crystal, because there is only one crystal. Then number of defect will be less. There is no grain boundaries. Imagine in the whole village there is only one house. They will not fight with their neighbors. If there are many neighbors in the adjacent to your houses, in general houses, there may be fight between the neighbors. But if there is only one house in the whole this place, around 5 acre or 10 acre land, who will know adjacent house? Adjacent, there may be some farms. But whenever there is no adjacent grains, then impurities will be less, or number of defect will be less. There is only one grain. There is no grain boundary defect like a tilt boundary. You are studied for your first test. You have written the test also. Tilt boundary you are talking about. You are talking about the grain boundary defect. There is no such type of defect if turbine blade is made up of only one crystal. That is a single crystal. Still, a lot of work is going on. Still, they are not able to produce the turbine blade of required size made up of single crystal, because one of the technical challenges. So once practical problem is, imagine you are poured the molten metal into the mold. The mold wall is having lower temperature. Each and every point in the mold wall will act as a nucleus. The new grain will be formed. Thousands of grain will be formed along the mold wall because the temperature is less. But we want only one nucleus, only one point solidification takes place. But it is very difficult to control, but still a lot of work is going on. So now these are the turbine blade. So turbine blade, if you take the microstructure of the turbine blade, this is the microstructure. Now we are coming back to the again grain only. So if you take the microstructure, it has grain, and it may be smaller grain and bigger grain. It has the grain boundary. So most of the turbine blades are subject to fatigue loading, because the turbine rods are subject to loading for a continuous period of time. If you run the turbine for steam turbine for 5 months, The 5 month it is subject to the pressure loading or some temperature stresses also. So now when you come to this, there may be but now we are talking about how fatigue crack will be developed. The different stages of fatigue is the first crack will be nucleated. Fatigue crack will be nucleated. So when steel rod is pushed and pulled continuously for 100 times, 1000 times, 10,000 times, or 1 million times. Normally, you are talking in terms of billions of times. So now new crack will be formed. There are maybe many reasons for formation of the crack. So one of the reasons for formation of the crack may be point defect. If there is a point defect or interstitial or foreign atom, then so point defect will be, that will act as a nucleus point. But it will form only the nucleus of the point. Even this is the point, a small void. When this void is subject to continuous tensile and compression loading, it will be expand and contract. Finally, this defect will be similar type of defect will be formed on the material. Now we are talking about the stress strain diagram. So this is also required. So now when load is applied, suddenly it will take maximum load. There may be some plastic deformation. There may be sudden decrease in the loading, the load bearing capacity of the material. Then you will get some bands. These are the bands like that. Bands are nothing but your grain boundary movement. There are many grain boundary. The many grain when it is subject to tensile loading, there may be grain boundary movement. Some cases we require more forces, and some cases we get lesser forces. Normally, these are referred as the bands with respect to. So one of the reasons for the formation of the fatigue crack may be edge dislocation. You have extra plane of atom here, extra plane of atom. So when it is subject to tensile loading, this extra plane of atom may try to move forward when it is subject to tensile. So when it is subject to compression, it will move towards center or closer. So because of the continuous movement of forward direction as well as backward direction, some void may be formed on this region. Those voids are referred as a fatigue nucleus or nucleus for the fatigue loading. Now this is the one more diagram. I think there is a slip plane. We are talking about the slip system. So you have to understand these photos may not be, no need to draw these sketches in the test or examination, but to write what is slip plane. For those understanding those concepts, I am putting these photos. No need to, these complex diagrams are not required for your test. What is given in your notes, my handwritten notes, or are they, if you are referring some books, that's some even local books also furnished, what are the sketches available, that is sufficient. But to understand what is there in the books, so you have to imagine these photos. I am giving the slip because whenever the continuous pulling and pushing of the steel rod takes place, there may be a slipping also. The slipping in the sense, if you move move your leg, move front and back continuously in the wet floor, you may slip also. If it is static loading, either you are try to move only in the forward direction, pushing your legs only in the forward direction, that there may be some interface between the floor and your bottom face of the chappal or shoe. That is nothing but slip plane. This we can see here. It is nothing but a slip plane. If you are standing in the wet floor, bottom surface of the slipper or a shoe and top surface of the floor, there is one interface. That interface is nothing but a slip. You might slip along that particular plane only, not in other. 1 foot below the floor or 1 foot above the floor, no slipping. At the interface between top surface of the floor and bottom surface of the chappal, there may be slipping. In the similar way, when you come to your why slip occurs, so now steel rod is pushed and pulled continuously for a long period of time. So when it is pushed and pulling takes place, there may be slipping of the grain boundary along the grain. That's referred as a slip plane. So to illustrate what is slip plane, we can see this is, imagine this is a complete one grain. I am talking about the grain. I am not talking about now onwards. I am not talking about unit cell. I am not talking about atomic level or arrangement. I am talking only about the grain. Grain, once you say grain, it consists of n number of unit cells. So whenever there is a slipping, imagine this is a single grain. This is a single grain. Then with this grain, what will happen is, so when it is subject to continuous the fatigue loading, either tensile compression, etc. So this row of atoms will try to move forward and backward. There is a one plane through which the movement of atoms here takes place forward as well as backward by breaking their atomic bonding. That particular plane is referred as a slip plane. Best example you can understand. Don't give such type of example for your test or your examination. You are slipping in the floor. So that is a bottom portion of the bottom portion. Floor is not rotate, but whenever there is slipping, there is a relative motion between your leg and floor. The now floor is fixed. Floor is not moving. Only your leg is slipping. In the similar way, with respect to this diagram, so we have a crystal. So crystal above the slip plane, there is a that we can refer to the top portion of the crystal. Below the slip plane, we can refer to the bottom portion of the crystal. So whenever it is subject to fatigue loading, even if it is subject to static loading also, so whenever imagine it is subject to fatigue loading, pulling takes place. So atomic bonding breaks along the slip plane. Atomic bonding will take other places the slipping will takes place, but at some particular plane, maximum atomic bonding fails. That particular plane is referred as a slip plane. So now we can imagine, for understanding better, we can imagine the bottom portion of the grain will remain same. There is no change in the movement. Only top portion of the grain will start moving up and down. Just moving your calculator or mobile over a table. A simple example is, imagine you have the mobile. You are moving the table mobile on the table surface. The table is fixed. Only mobile is moving. Between table and mobile, there is a interface surface. That interface is nothing but your slip plane. Your mobile sits over the table. You put some oil and you try to move some mobile itself or some other object, it slips. In the similar way, in the grain level also, slipping takes place. It is not only required. Don't think that these concepts are only required for your fatigue. It may be. It is also required for the creep. It is also required for remaining another 1 or 2 module also. That's why I'm stressing this concept. So now it is a slip boundary. It's a boundary here. At this location. So now we required huge amount. Imagine. So imagine this particular material is subject to tensile loading. So these are the symbol for the edge dislocation. This is one edge dislocation. This is one more edge dislocation. This is because there is a one extra plane of atom above the slip plane. This is your slip plane. This horizontal plane above the theta line, that is a slip plane. Above the slip plane, there are many edge dislocation. We can see vertical line, that is inverted T. It is after inverted T. That is nothing but a slip plane. Yeah, so these are nothing but extra plane of atom. This is one extra plane of atom. This is one more extra plane of atom. This is one more extra plane of atom. The dislocation, mainly why I am talking about the dislocation is, whenever material subject to fatigue loading or stress reversal, so fatigue crack is nucleated in the material. So one of the reasons for nucleation of the fatigue crack is dislocation. Dislocation also referred as line, this one. Now I am talking about slipping. When it is subject to static loading, only it will slip in the one direction. When it is subject to both tensile as well as compression loading, so this particular plane, one fraction of time it moves downward. The same plane is moving in the upward direction in another cycle of loading. That is the difference between your static loading and dynamic loading. If you pull the steel rod, so imagine this particular plane is moving in the downward direction, but if you push, this particular plane is moving in the upward direction. There is a, because of the stress reversal, the movement of the slip plane also changes, the direction also changes with respect to movement. So now this is the actual photograph of dislocation. You can see it's some darker line. So this darkened line, this is the actual photograph, that is transmission electron micrograph of a titanium alloy in which dark lines are dislocation. You can see here, these are the dark locations, dark lines. These dark lines are nothing but a dislocation or edge dislocation or screw dislocation. You can see here, there is a one extra plane of atom here. This is one more extra plane of atom. Here one more extra plane of atom. This is one more extra plane of atom. So these extra plane of atoms will make the edge dislocation. Now we can imagine how, because in our we have microscope in our material testing laboratory. It's what is the magnification factor? Range of magnification factor in what we have microscope. Any one of you can tell? I hope it is finished for almost B1, B2, and B3 batch. What is the magnification factor? What is the magnification factor of microscope we have in our lab?
10x.
10x by some arranged lens also we can make it up to 100x.
100x.
But what is the magnification factor of this transmission electron micrograph? This photo is referred as a micrograph. You should understand the difference between micrograph and microscope. So micrograph is obtained from the microscope. Microscope may be optical microscope or scanning electron microscope or transmission electron microscope. If you get some images from the transmission electron microscope, then it is a transmission electron micrograph. So magnification factor is 51,000, around 51,000. So imagine we have 1 mm line, it is enlarged to 51,000. 1 mm line, it is enlarged to almost 50 kilometers. You can imagine, no? We have 1 mm line, it is magnified, so its length become 50 kilometers, almost like if not 50 kilometer, 50,000, 50 meter, 50 meter. 50,000 means 50,000 mm means the 50 meter. 1 mm line is there, that is magnified to 50 meter. That we can imagine what is the magnification factor, or what sophisticated equipment are required to study this dislocation. To study the dislocation is not easy. Again, we require a lot of R&D setup. Only central government funded R&D setup, they have all facilities like NAL, ISRO, or there are some defense laboratories, they have sophisticated microscope. Each microscope cost itself around 10 to 15 crore rupees, and not cheaper microscopes. Now I am talking about the dislocation. Why dislocation occur means you are applied fatigue loading. Because of the fatigue loading, the externally you are pulling the steel rod and pushing the steel rod. So within the grain, atoms will move forward and backward. And if there is some hard particle in the grain, so it will not move forward. It will stop there itself. Like imagine you are driving your vehicle in the highway. If there is a sudden signal point, you have to stop the vehicle. You have to stop the vehicle. In the similar way, so whenever atoms are, whenever it is subject to, material is subject to the dislocation, material is subject to dislocation, or when material is subject to fatigue loading, what will happen is this dislocation is try to move forward. The plane of atom will move forward as well as backward. Whenever there is an alloying element or ceramic particle, imagine we have metal is made up of imagine we have aluminum. Aluminum is very soft. If it is a pure aluminum, you want to make more stronger, you have to adding some ceramic material like alumina, etc. There are aluminum particles. Particle not is a bigger particle, it may be size may be very small. So whenever this aluminum atom is moving and there is a sudden obstacle, the obstacles are nothing but the alloying element. Because of this obstacle, so this dislocation will not move further. So dislocation not move further means we require additional forces to move the dislocation or to get plastic deformation. So finally there is a plastic deformation. If it is only aluminum alloy for same 100 kg of load, so elongation may be, if it is only pure aluminum, if we apply 100 kg of load, that will be tensile load. the deformation may be only 10 mm. If it is aluminum alloy with the ceramic material, for the same 100 kg of load, the deformation may be only 5 mm because material is stronger. Why material is stronger means the aluminum atom will not move easily because of ceramic particle. Suddenly there is a obstruction here, like a humps in the road. So when vehicle is moving very 60 or around 100 km/h, if there is a sudden humps, you have to apply the brake. So now your alloying element, what you calling as a solid solution. Solid solution means we have atoms. If you can come to your steel, it is a solid solution of Fe as well as carbon. If it is only steel, Fe, it is very soft. If because of the carbon, if your percent of carbon is more and more, the hardness will be increases, toughness will be increases up to certain level. Why toughness is increases means the carbon atoms are the obstacle for movement of the Fe atoms. You have to remember, once you add alloying elements or atoms are obstacle for the parent metal atoms. Because of those obstacles, this obstacle will pile up at a certain point. Like whenever there is the traffic signal become red, so there's a lot of vehicles parked side by side. So like that, the atoms also pile up at certain location wherever there is a obstacle. But if we apply the load further and further, so this obstacle also can move. We have alloying element. That alloying atom also can be moved forward or backward. Only thing is we require additional forces. That means we require additional stresses, or we can say that. So whenever material becomes stronger and stronger by adding alloying element, then so we require extra forces to get the deformation. Yes, sir.
The certificate to pay.
Okay.
Soft copy.
So that means, other than studying the fatigue, once you add, because your second part of your module 1, the module 2, you are talking about the iron carbon diagram. The complete iron carbon diagram, you are talking about the solution consists of Fe as well as carbon atom. So if we add more and more carbon atom, material becomes stronger. Why it becomes stronger means the carbon atoms become the obstacle. To overcome the obstacle, we require more amount of force. Whenever we require more amount of forces, we can say that the material is more stronger and stronger. So now we can see here. So no need to worry about, no need to draw all these sketches, but you should understand the concept. Then you can write with some sketches. It is given in the textbooks. But I am putting so many photos to understand the concept. Once you understand, you can explain by yourself without much. You are talking about the fatigue loading. In the case of fatigue loading, what will happen is fatigue loading, the stress magnitude will changes. So when you are applying tensile load, imagine this peak is 100 megapascal. Then, so stress level comes down, then it will become minus 100 megapascal. We are pulling. The pulling means extreme position is this. When you pushed, then it comes to this particular point, compressive loading, minus 100 megapascal compression loading plus 100 megapascal tensile compression. Because of that, dislocation will be moving. This is the edge dislocation. The positive edge dislocation or upper, this inverted T refers to positive edge dislocation. I think you have studied for that. So whenever there is an obstacle, so edge dislocation will pile up. Then further movement of the obstacle, this dislocation. So we require huge amount of forces. That means if you use aluminum, only aluminum, because there are less obstacles, because there is only few alloying element or impurities. If you add aluminum with some ceramic material like alumina, etc., there is a more alloying element. Because of the more alloying element, those alloying element will act as an obstacle. Because of these obstacle, we require more forces to overcome those obstacles. I think dislocation density is not. You can see here. This is the macroscopically you are applying tensile load here. You can see here on the left side we have a tensile specimen. But if you take only a small part of the tensile specimen, if you take the microstructure, so finally you are talking about the grain. This is one grain. This is one more grain. You can see the 3 grains here. This is one grain. This is one more grain. This is one more grain. We have 3 grains. I am showing only small portion. When it is subject to the tensile force, so the atomic distance, the atomic center distance will be increases, but it is for the static loading. When it is subject to compression loading, the atom will try to move towards each other. Atomic distance will be decreases. Because of continuous this movement, the slipping along the grain boundary takes place. So whenever there is slipping along the grain boundary, continuous slipping, some crack may be formed or void may be formed. So left side is diagram refers to schematic sketch. This is the schematic sketch, but actual photograph you can see here. Because of continuous slipping, so you can see some cracks, micro cracks. The size may be, I think size is not given. This size. So maybe in terms of micron, some crack will be formed. This is a microscopic crack. The size of the crack may be 0.001 mm or 0.0001 mm because of continuous compression loading as well as tensile loading. So now you can see here, there is one more concept, that is the work hardening concept. So what is work hardening concept is, it is also referred as strain hardening. Again, these concepts are required not only this fatigue chapter, it is required for heat treatment also. There is one more heat treatment, that is referred as annealing heat treatment. So in the annealing treatment or hardening heat treatment also, there may be work hardening or strain hardening process. Even during your fatigue loading also, there is a strain hardening the material. Your forging operation may be also there may be strain hardening. The strain hardening is nothing but, best example I can give, understanding I can give is, so when the suddenly traffic signal is the red, so suddenly there will be hundreds of vehicles pile up. So imagine you have to overcome all those paths, then you require additional effort. If the traffic signal is green, then we can move easily. So whenever there is even if you can imagine about the hump, there may be multiple humps. Even roads now, instead of having bigger one hump, they are going for the multiple humps. Even in front of CRPF gates, we can observe there will be multiple humps instead of having single hump. So whenever you are driving your vehicle around multiple humps, so now it requires more energy, or you have to give more accelerator if you want to go with the same speed, or speed maybe reduces. The speed reduces means there may be obstacle for the vehicle and hump. The vehicle is this hump is the obstacle. To overcome the obstacle, more energy is required, more force is required. In the similar way, in the metal also, when it is subject to loading, so there may be some obstacle. Once it is undergo plastic deformation, to get more and more plastic deformation, we require more and more energy. That process is referred as strain hardening. As best example is, imagine you have the steel wire. If you simply bend only once, it will not break. If you bend around 8 to 10 times, it will break easily, because wherever the bent region, because of continuous movement of forward and backward movement at the bent region, the material get hardened, and finally the strain hardening takes place. At that particular point, the steel wire break. That we can imagine what is strain hardening. Or we can say that we require more amount of forces or stresses to get the small amount of deformation. That process is referred as a strain hardening process. So because of the strain hardening, the material become harder. So once material become harder, to get small amount of deformation, we require more amount of forces. Like I am giving example of coconut and apple. To deform the apple, we require less force. To get the same deformation for the coconut, we require more force because coconut is harder. Coconut shell is harder. In the similar way, same metal, once it is undergo some plastic deformation, the metal gets hardened because of the dislocation pile up. To get more and more plastic deformation, we require additional effort. Like for some problematic subject, some tough subject, we require more effort. To score more and more, you have to put more and more effort, because it is you have to put more effort, then only you can get good marks. But there are some subject you can score well without putting so much of effort. In the similar way, there are some metals, they are very soft, we can deform easily with minimum effort or minimum force. But there are some metal we require more forces to get the small amount of deformation. Now this is the example for tilt boundary. The tilt boundary may be one of the cause for nucleation of fatigue crack. So I am shown here. This is one more diagram I have shown. So whenever there is imagine this is a grain boundary. One atom from this left grain and one more atom from the right side. This is left side, there is one grain, right side one more grain. So atom from left side grain and right side grain bonding takes place. On the left side atom may jump into right grain, or right side atom may jump into left side grain. Because of that, there is a huge amount of atom movement. Because of huge amount of atom movement, there may be plastic deformation. See here, the same thing here. The tilt boundary. These are the edge dislocation. There are series of edge dislocation. Because of series of edge dislocation, there is plastic deformation. I think these things we are familiar. This I think sometimes you get some WhatsApp videos also. If one phase means everything will fall. So in the similar way, the dislocation moves. If you remove one, automatically all the blocks will try to move. It try to fall. In the similar way, there are dislocation line. So whenever it is subject to forces, so there may be some plastic deformation. So now you can see this is as your slip plane. There's a precipitate particle like in the case of aluminum silicon alloy. You are familiar. I hope you are familiar with the aluminum silicon alloy. The silicon is the alloying element. This is a slip plane. Aluminum atom will try to move forward. Because of the silicon atom, it will block the aluminum movement. Some barricade, road barricade, like it looks like act like a road barricade or road hump. Aluminum atoms are bonding strength is less. Whenever it's subject to loading, it will move fastly. Because of silicon atom stop movement of the aluminum atom, or it will slow down like a hump. It may slow down. To move it further, we require more amount of forces. That is what is the precipitation hardening. We have precipitate. It is a solid state precipitate. Because of the solid state precipitate, we require more amount of forces. Again, to overcome that aluminum, this particular grain, you have to break the grain. To break this particular grain made up of silicon, we require huge amount of force. We can see here. This upper part of the grain is try to slide over the bottom part. This is. There are different theories for fatigue failure. Once you understand these concepts, you can understand different failures. One is Wood's criteria, one is Vorman's criteria, one more is Cottrell and Hull theory. This concept I will explain in the next class. Again, these concepts are required for your module 3 also. It is required. Module 3 completely on heat treatment. During your heat treatment, you are changing the size of the grain, shape of the grain, etc. Because of all those things. So it is this, especially the fatigue mechanism, the grain boundary, edge dislocation, screw dislocation, all those things are very, very important. I think so. I am putting so many photos. No need to write all photos for your fatigue failure. If you write two, what are the diagrams or schematic diagram available in books, and or two diagram may be available. If you write those diagrams are sufficient, but understand those diagrams, understand what is given in the textbook. You have to imagine these photos. I think those are not entered your USN number. Please enter. After entering, now it is a break time. You can take the break, or you can leave the session, or you can continue the session. But you have to enter your USN number and name. I hope most of them are entered. If you have any doubt, You can clarify. I am going slowly this fundamental concept, but when you come to your module 4 composite material, I will not go slowly. I will go a little bit fast. It is only applied material science, no concept you are studying. Only what are the composition, application, properties. Only those concepts you are discussing in module 4. Module 4, I'll go a little bit faster, but module 2, so you are studying more of fundamental. It is required for module 3 also. So those who are not entered your USN number, please enter your USN number. Then you can leave the session or you can continue because you have another 20 minutes break. It's your choice. But before leaving, because I'm stopping the record, I'm going to stop the recording. Once you go for stopping the record, once I stop recording, even though you enter your USN number, it will not be taken. That's very important. Sometimes you may enter your USN number after recording was stopped, then your name will not be displayed or your name will not be recorded in the chat box. That's why before stopping the recording, you have to enter your USN. There are some students are saying I was attended the classes, I entered your my USN number also. But after stopping the stop recording, if you enter, you don't get attendance. That also very important. Not in our class. Some higher semester students, they are complaining about that. So telling in the proctor meeting, they might have entered their USN number after recording stopped. I hope everyone is finished. I'll go for I'll stop recording. Once you recording is stopped, you cannot, even though you can enter in the chat box your USN number and name, but it will not come back to us.